Evening, everyone. We are going to get started here with a land acknowledgement. As we gather here today, let us be reminded that the community in which we live, work, and play is situated in traditional, unceded Algonquin First Nation territory. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Anishinaabe people and express our respect and support for their rich history and culture. Call to order.
All members, with the exception of Mayor Randall, are present.
You may have noticed I'm not Mayor Randall. Approval of the agenda. I recommend motion that the agenda be approved as presented. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Atkinson, seconded by Councillor Comley. Any discussion? None seen. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Any disclosures or conflicts in the council agenda? Don't see any. Great. Could I get a recommended motion that the county minutes dated January 27th, 2026 be accepted as presented? A mover and seconder?
I'll move the council minutes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You said county.
Did I? Doesn't sound right. I didn't say that. I'll watch the video later. I said council. Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Hinton? All in favor? It's carried. Consent report. Recommend a motion that council receives a consent report dated February 17th, 2026. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Sakaspina, Councillor Kavanaugh. Any discussion about the consent report? Don't see any. All in favor? That's carried. Bylaws. Number 1, bylaw number 10-2026. Recommend a motion that bylaw 10-2026 to approve the Joint Compliance Audit Committee terms of reference be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Could I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Comley, Councillor Kavanaugh. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Number 2, bylaw number 11-2026. The recommended motion that bylaws 11-2026 and 12-2026 to approve part lot control for parts of Eastwood Drive and Reynolds Avenue be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Hinton and Councillor Atkinson. Any discussion? All in favor? And we've carried. Down to announcements. I'll read off what I have here, and then anybody who would like to weigh in as well could go ahead. The first announcement is Lunar New Year, Year of the Horse, February 17th, 2026. For anybody who's into that. The next is Pink Shirt Day, February 25th, 2026. That's the Anti-Bullying Day. And the next is International Women's Day, March 8th. Anyone else have any announcements? Councillor Kavanaugh and then Councillor Sakaspina. Go ahead.
I don't have an announcement. I just have a little history about the Year of the Horse, and it's especially the Year of the Fire Horse. Our horses for our fire department were bought from a local contractor and taken on 30 days trial, and they could not be taught in that time they returned. The newer horses, when kept to stables, hadn't the faintest idea of the terror in store for them, and only realized it when led into a large room and tied securely. It is then that the employees of the stables with gongs, old dishpans, introduced them to more noise in 20 seconds, which is essentially more sounds than they had ever heard in their life. When the horse recovered from the shock of the terrible din and is kicking and prancing, he is led back to the stall. The same amount of noise was repeated the next day and the day after that and the day after that until the horse disdainfully ignored all efforts to upset his nervous system. After this, he was to come under the harness at the sound of the gong and pull in a single and a double harness fan engine, truck cart, engineer's cart, and police riot wagon. This was continued until the animal learned thoroughly what was required from him. Horses were used to pull our fire engines here in Carleton Place, primarily from the mid-1800s to the 1910s, with the height of the horse-drawn era roughly lasting from 1860 to 1920. Thank you.
That was great, Linda. Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, I like that. I did not know that about horses. I just wanted to start off and say I hope everyone had a really great Family Day weekend and enjoyed the beautiful sunshiny day we had today. I was feeling very much like I needed a patio. It was also Random Act of Kindness Day, so I hope everyone got out and experienced a little kindness. Just a little reminder that this week is actually Local Heritage Week. So go out and support local heritage, and we need to thank Linda for always keeping us abreast of all the fun things in Carleton Place history. February 27th, 8 to 9 p.m. There's going to be a sponsored youth swim at the pool, ages 12 to 17. You do need to pre-register and check the Carlton Place Recreation and Culture page for details on that. Also, February 28th, from 10 to 4, we're going to have movies here at Town Hall, 2 movies back to back. Again, check the Recreation and Culture Facebook page for details. And it is also the coldest night of the year fundraiser. So that is in support of Cornerstone here in town, and that supports Lanark County Youth. So I hope that you'll mark your calendar for that as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Anyone else have any announcements? All right, moving on. Confirmatory bylaw. The recommended motion that bylaw 13-2026 confirmation of council proceedings for February 17th, 2026 be read a first, second, and third time and finally pass. Mover and seconder. Councillor Kavanaugh, Councillor Conley. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. And adjournment. Recommend a motion the meeting be adjourned at 6:06 p.m. Moved by Councillor Atkinson and seconded by Councillor Hinton. All in favor? And we're on to committee of the whole. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Tennant. And we are on to the Committee of the Whole for February 17th, 2026. We will call the meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. Approval of the agenda. The suggested motion is that the agenda be approved as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Comley, seconded by Councillor Atkinson. Any discussions? See none. All in favor? Opposed? None. And that has passed. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary conflict of interest and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest of the agenda this evening? If so, please state the item and the nature of the interest for the record. Members are also reminded that a declaration may be made now or at any time in this matter is considered on the agenda. Deputy Mayor Tennant.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a conflict with the in-camera item number 2 because I own property near what we're discussing. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Tennant. Minutes to be approved and received. The suggested motion is that the Committee of the Whole minutes dated January 27th, 2026 be accepted as presented. Moved by Councillor Sekaspita, second by Councillor Atkinson. Any discussions? See none. All in favor? And that motion is passed. Thank you. And we are quickly on to reports. We have several of them this evening. The first report is for the Carlton Place Fire Department and Municipal Bylaw Enforcement 2025, the fourth quarter activity report, communication 137006. Unfortunately, Dave Joy, our Acting Director of Protective Services, is not available this evening, that they're at a call. So we can take this as information, and any questions that anyone may have can be directed to Dave Joy at a future time. So I'll read the suggested motion. That council receive as information the 2025 fourth quarter Carlton Place Fire Department and Municipal Law Enforcement Activity Summary as outlined in the report by Acting Director of Protective Services dated February 17th, 2026. Can I get a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Tennant, second by Councillor Comley. All in favor? Thank you. And that motion is passed. We are on to report 2, Community Improvement Plan Brownfield Grant Request, communication 137007. We do have one individual who would like to speak on this item this evening before Nikki gives her report. Casey Van Doggen. Hopefully I pronounced that properly. If you can please come up. You will have 5 minutes to speak on the subject. We just ask that you stay on to the subject pertaining to the Brownfield grant request.
Okay, my name's Casey Van Dongen. Myself and James Michalosik are the owners of MacArthur Island, which is a lot of the island is still designated contaminated fill and brownfield. So we are applying for a rebate under Program 8 of the community improvement. The criteria to meet this is fairly narrow. It says we can apply for a rebate on the fees for a phase 2 ESA study. We've had several phase 2 ESA studies on the property already, and we've spent a couple $100,000 on testing and such. We need more tests now in order to be able to go on to the risk assessment process, which is part of the record of site condition. And right now, we have to determine the depths of the fill material and what it consists of within the floodplain and on the wetland area. So we've applied to MVCA for a permit to do this testing, and then we have to basically dig holes, figure out the depth of the contaminated soil, and then map it out, have a surveyor map it out so that we can determine the amount of the cut and fill. We know that it'll cost us about $4,000 a truckload to get the dirt removed to a fill site. Either that, or we have to encapsulate it within our own site, and that will be a whole separate cost. But right now, we need this information so that we can determine the exact area which we're going to apply for the risk assessment for. So it's survey costs and testing costs and digging costs, and that's what this is for. It doesn't, the phase 2 risk assessment is sort of a preliminary assessment, and we've had 2 of those done. So it doesn't meet the exact criteria, but it definitely is a cost. And we figure it'll cost us about $40,000 to $50,000 to get this work done, to even get into a position to do the risk assessment. And I think that's, from that, we hope to create a severance and sever the buildable property from the other property. But until we define the site, we can't go ahead with that even.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Van Doggen. We will have Nikki at this point up with her report.
Good evening, Council. Yes, so further to Mr. Van Doggen's presentation, there is an application before Council for consideration to fund the Brownfield program. Council will recall that when we established our community improvement plan, we had a suite of programs that we have the opportunity to turn on, turn off each budget year. Council, since adopting the CIP, has not provided any funding allocated to the Brownfield programs, of which there are 3. As Casey alluded to, the scope and nature of the work of the studies that they're currently looking for funding for do not fit neatly within the bucket of programs that we do fund through Program 8, nor is there any funding in the budget currently. Casey's letter is attached to the staff report as well for Council's information. But I will say at this point, the staff recommendation is to not proceed. We don't have a funding envelope where this grant would be coming from this year. And unless directed by Council to seek that funding from somewhere else in the budget, we don't have recommendations for where that funding would come from. But if there's questions by Council, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Nikki. So I'll open it up for discussions for Nikki. Prior to, though, I just will read the staff recommendation. Staff recommendation is that council dismiss the request for funding through the town's community improvement plan by the representative of 150 Mill Street on the basis that the studies are not recognized as eligible expenses by the community improvement plan. So at this time, I'll open it up to council if anyone has any further questions. Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just have a question with respect to which phase of the development this application is aimed at. So I understand this is a this development has 5 phases to it. Then phase 1, 2, and 3 are to be completed before there's any movement forward with phases 4 and 5. Is that correct?
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes, so the land in question where the contamination exists would constitute part of phases 4 and 5. It's also being used as overflow parking for phases 1 through 3. The nature of the environmental remediation work would be to facilitate the development of phases 4 and 5, which you are correct, have not been approved at this point.
Thanks. Just getting that answer. I would like obviously as you said in the report, we don't have room we haven't allocated any funding for this particular program. In the past, I've always been, in favor of allocating budgeting for brownfield development, specifically with respect to the strategic properties in town, because they were originally identified strategic properties because they were brownfield sites, and it was the hopes that there would be some incentivization for the development. So while we may not be able to do this time, I would encourage staff to coax the next council going through its budget process to maybe offer some funding to flesh this out, because it is a significant cost, and it does impede the cleanup of brownfield sites, which again are our strategic property sites. So we're kind of punching ourselves in the nose by not funding brownfield cleanup sites. But I'm prepared to support the denial right now, but I would hope that they would be able to approach council in the future and receive some funding for this.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson. Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Comley.
I know we set the affordable housing and accessibility as our priorities under this fund for now. Has any money or help been given to this property under the other allocations of this fund yet?
Through the CIP, no, they're not within the eligible area for facade improvements. We have talked briefly about the options available for affordable housing, of which we have a good chunk of money available and we would very much like to see used. We have been working as of late through some heritage grants because it is a designated property under the Ontario Heritage Act. So we're looking at grant opportunities there, but that's not specific to the CIP. It's a separate program.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions at this time? I see none. So again, I will read the suggested motion. The suggested motion is that the council dismiss the request for funding through the town's community improvement plan by the representatives of 150 Mill Street on the basis that the studies are not recognized as eligible expenses by the community improvement plan. Can I get a first and second on that? Councillor Kavanaugh, second by Councillor Deputy Mayor Tennant. All in favor? Opposed? See none? And that motion is passed. Thank you very much. And we are on to Recreation Funding Reserve Fund Policy, Communication 137009. We will have Joanne Henderson, our Manager of Recreation.
The Ontario Trillium Foundation Capital Grant.
Sorry, Ross. I'm sorry, jumping right ahead. We are on to the third report, which is the Ontario Trillium Foundation Capital Grant Application, New Arena Elevator, Communication 137008. And we have the pleasure of Ross Rankin, Property and Project Manager, to go through the report for us. Ross?
Thank you, through the chair. Staff is working on a grant application through the Ontario Trillium Foundation on their capital side for a new elevator over at the arena. This is our third time applying for a grant at some sort. We applied through the GICB program, which is a federal program, which we just received a notice a couple weeks ago that it was declined. And we are coming back to the OTF again for an application that we put in last year. We received some really good comments from them. I attended a session today, and I am got a one-on-one with a coach tomorrow from OTF to tighten up our application to hopefully get it to go through. So we've done all the design work, all the engineering's been done, the plans are ready to go. All we need is the funding and then go and apply for a building permit. So the OTF maximum grant is $200,000. We are expecting that this construction project will be around $285,000. So we have a shortfall of $85,000, which we'll be requesting support from council. And I'll answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ross. Any questions or comments? Councillor Comley.
What is the current state of the elevator at the arena?
Not good. We had a couple failures last year, and as part of the AODA compliance that we have to follow is if it fails, we have to post it on the elevator, post it on our website, and provide alternative access to the space. So there's a whole stuff to go to. The biggest concern is it's original and it's landlocked. We cannot build a new elevator inside, or we can't expand it because we looked at that originally.
That's what I thought your answer was going to be. It's not the first time we've been here talking about this elevator. We really need to get this fixed. We need a new elevator, so I'm in favor of $85,000.
Thank you, Councillor Comley. Councillor Atkinson.
Following up on Councillor Comley, when would you expect to get an answer for the Ontario Trillium Fund? And if we don't get the answer that we hope for, are you going to come before us again asking for the $285,000 to do the elevator this year?
The answer is sometime in early June, I believe. It's pretty 4 months, yeah. So it's pretty quick turnaround. I would suggest that I would be coming back and asking for the money. Construction for 2027. It takes a little while to order the actual elevator component, but it would be identified in the 2027 budget.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or discussion? Will we have Ross here? See none, I will read the suggested motion. The council authorized staff to apply for Ontario Trillium Foundation capital grant funding for the new arena elevator, and that if successful, the budget deviation of $85,000 be funded through the 2026 year-end surplus, if any, or from the strategic reserves. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor Tennant and Councillor Kavanagh, all in favor? Opposed, none, and that motion has carried. Thank you, Ross. Okay, now I'm back on track. We are at Recreation Funding Reserve Fund Policy, Communication 137009, and that report will be given to us tonight by Joanne Henderson, our Manager of Recreation and Culture. Joanne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was asked to prepare a policy to provide some clear guidance on a recreation fundraising reserve that staff have been fundraising since 1994 for various initiatives within the town. So I've developed a policy to indicate how the funds can be used and that they would be in fact used no later than December the 31st, 2028.
Thank you, Joanne. Quick, concise, to the point. Any questions or discussion for Joanne on the proposed policy? Councillor Kavanagh.
Thanks. Not really a question, but I just think before we, go into discussion, how wonderful it is and just a testament to the kind of staff that work in town that, do dedicate and volunteer their time to raise money and give back to their community in that way. And I always think that that's wonderful. And I just think I'd like to take a moment to say that I see that, and we're very lucky to have staff that are willing to spend their free time to raise money for worthy things happening in our community. So thank you for bringing the policy forward, and I look forward to future events.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kavanaugh. I couldn't agree more. It's nice to see them getting involved, raising funds that are going to help all of our residents in Carleton Place for years to come. Is there any other discussions or questions on this? I see none, so I will read the motion that council approve the Recreation Funding Reserve Fund policy as outlined in the report by the Manager of Recreation and Culture dated February 17th, 2026. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Kavanaugh, seconded by Councillor Sekespina. All in favor? Opposed? See none, and that motion has carried. Thank you. And on to the draft film policy, communication 137010. Again, Joanne Henderson, Manager of Recreation and Culture.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have developed a draft film policy to help provide some guidelines to movie productions when they're in Carleton Place. It's been, since COVID, we haven't had that many, but they're starting to become more popular. And as we're all aware, there's 2 movies being filmed in Carleton Place during the month of December. So we've developed a policy to help provide the film industry with some guidelines on how we would like them to respect our space and make sure that everybody is treated fairly when they're in town. I'd be happy to take some questions.
Thank you for that, Joanne, and we'll open up the questions or discussion, starting with Councillor Sekespina.
Hey, Joanna, I hadn't seen all of this and I was quite impressed as I read it. Now, would the rates change from year to year? Would they go up similar to renting, let's say, our ice or something like that?
Through the chair, yes, I would imagine that we would have a regular cost of living increase to those rates.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Comley?
Well, not really a question. Just want to say thank you for bringing this forward. I think if movies are going to come to town a little more regularly, having those guidelines out there ahead of time is a good idea. I actually had a discussion with a movie production manager today who was asking about film policy. So I told him that we were in the process of making one. So I think it's recognized in the municipalities that do movies regularly, and I'm glad to see we have one. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Comley. Any other questions? Councillor Atkinson.
Just quickly, I like this when I read through it. I was concerned when I initially heard that this was coming, that it was going to be a money grab and red tape. It is not that. It's actually based on the way you described it. It's letting the film company know what the community expectations are for their work in town. And it's not asking for any more money than the town incurs through processing the requests or by providing staff for blocking off streets. So it's not red tape. It's a policy based on fairness, and I think it will work well in the town. And thanks for the work on this.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson. Any other further questions or concerns? See none, I will read the suggested motion. The suggested motion is that council approve the Town of Carleton Place film policy and that council approve amending the town's fees and charges bylaw to incorporate film-related fees as outlined in the report by the Manager of Recreation and Culture dated February 17th, 2026. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Comley, second by Councillor Kavanaugh. All in favor? Opposed? See none, and that motion has carried. Thank you. And not leaving yet, Joanne, we are on to another report, ice resurfacing machine, which is our Zamboni repairs, communication 137011. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As my report indicates, we have a backup propane Zamboni that we use if there's any issues with our electric Zamboni. And recently the engine has failed on the backup Zamboni. So at this point in time, we're left with only one operating Zamboni. And if something should happen to that Zamboni, we would not be able to operate. So after discussions with the service manager at Zamboni, as well as our fleet manager, they provided 2 different recommendations, but it's felt that the refurbishing either our existing Zamboni or if it doesn't deem to be worth refurbishing, we would purchase a refurbished Zamboni from Zamboni at a cost of $65,000. This is something that we definitely need. We can't operate without it. So I'd be happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Joanne. And as you'll notice on the report, there are two options. So I will open it up at this point for comments or questions. Deputy Mayor Tennant.
First question, it's just a point of clarification. Is the company also called Zamboni that supplies the Zambonis?
In this situation, Zamboni is the company, yes. It's actually called an ice resurfacer, but we call it a Zamboni, kind of like a Skidoo, snowmobile, same thing.
So it's a brand name. Okay, I'm fine with that. I feel like I'm Canadian in cold weather. I didn't know that. I should have known that, I guess. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident that we had the mechanic look at it. They've got a recommendation that they think saves us a bit of money and keeps the machine functioning. I propose that I would be fine with the suggested motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Tennant. Any other questions or discussions? Sorry, Joanne?
I just wanted to make a note that this is a time sensitive issue because if the electric Zamboni, something happens to it, we're going to be in a bit of a situation. So I'm asking that I know it usually goes to council, but I'm wondering if we can get approval to move forward with, shipping our Zamboni back to Zamboni immediately so we can get on with the process.
So, Deputy Mayor Tennant?
So I would propose that we give staff direction to suspend procedural bylaw and move ahead with going with the purchase and getting this thing fixed as quick as possible. So I'll move that.
Seconder, Councillor Comley. All in favor if the motion is approved as option 2, that it be sent off immediately with that. We are at this point just the motion of procedural bylaw. 2/3 vote, correct? Great, and that has passed. So now I will read the suggested motion. The council approve option number 2 to proceed with the refurbished propane Zamboni at an upset cost of $65,000 as outlined in the report by the Manager of Recreation and Culture dated February 17th, 2026, and that the budget deviation be funded from the year-end surplus, if any, or from the asset management reserve. If I can get a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Kavanaugh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Tennant. All in favor? Thank you. And that motion is carried. Thanks, Joanne. And we are just waiting for our next presenter, so hang tight, please. Okay, so our next presenter is here. So we're on to our final report of the evening, WSIB Health and Safety Excellence Program and Safety Compliance Assessment 2026 from 2026 to 2028, communication 137012. And we have Laura Scull, our HR manager, to give us a report on that. Laura?
Good evening, members of the committee. I'm here to provide a brief overview of the recommended approach for strengthening the town's health and safety program over the 2026 to 2028 period. Our last full audit was completed in 2021, and since then, provincial expectations and the Ministry of Labour requirements have continued to evolve. Several components of our current program now require updating to reflect modern legislation and the operational needs of a growing municipality. To support this work, the town has assigned 20% of an existing employee's role to serve as the health and safety coordinator, providing internal capacity that was previously difficult to sustain. Staff are recommending that the town participate in the WSIB Health and Safety Excellence Program, which includes completing a safety compliance assessment as the required baseline audit. This program provides structured implementation support, access to health and safety software, and coaching through 4S Consulting, who have completed the town's previous audits. This approach offers a more comprehensive and sustainable method of strengthening compliance than a traditional standalone audit, while aligning well with the internal capacity created through the new coordinator role. Financially, the program is highly favorable. The town is eligible for WSIB rebates of $5,500 per completed topic, up to 10 topics over 2 years. When compared to the total program costs, participation is projected to result in a net positive financial impact of approximately $22,540. This approach modernizes our health and safety system, strengthens due diligence, and supports multi-year planning. For these reasons, staff recommend that Council approve participation in the WSIB Health and Safety Excellence Program and authorize staff to proceed with the 2-year partnership with 4S Consulting.
Thank you for that, Laura. And I will open it up to Council for any questions or discussion they have with Laura on this. Again, there are 2 options to consider. If there's questions. Deputy Mayor Tennant.
So I like that we're not going to spend as much money. I guess the only question I have is if we decided at any point during the term of the program we wanted to leave the program for some reason, what would happen?
So we would have to make a 2-year commitment up front. So that is part of the quote that we have from them. However, there's really no negative. The decision is about whether we want to proceed with a traditional audit at the cost of over $11,000, or we can do the baseline audit through this program and then provide us opportunity to not only complete 10 topics of health and safety compliance within the town, but also could have a net gain of over $22,000.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Any other discussions or questions at this time? I see none, so I will read the suggested motion. The suggested motion is that Council approve the town's participation in the WSIB Health and Safety Excellence Program for the 2026 to 2028 period, including completion of the safety compliance assessment, and authorize staff to proceed with the 2-year implementation partnership with 4S Consulting, and that Council revisit participating in 2029 to determine whether the continued involvement in the Health and Safety Excellence Program is beneficial. Moved by Councillor Atkinson, second by Councillor Comley. All in favor? Opposed? See none? Thank you. That motion has carried. Thanks, Laura. And that is it for reports this evening. So we are moving on to new and other business, which we have 1 item on the agenda. Discussion, council member participation regarding director interview panel. We have Laura Skull from HR and Smithson CAO here to answer any questions. Can open it up for discussion. Deputy Mayor Tennant.
Yeah, okay. A little bit of origin story on this. We had a conversation internally just casually about whether or not council members would take part in some fashion in the interview process and the selection process for the new position. At one point, the mayor was going to step in and he's recently stepped out again. So when I brought it to Diane, she said, well, we should probably get it on the table to have a discussion with council to see what they want to do. My recommendation is two things. This term, we haven't discussed the hiring policy. Hasn't come up yet. We haven't had a chance to. Personally, I think that would be a good thing to discuss every term. What our hiring policy is, and then the involvement of councillors, if they are going to be involved or they choose to be involved as council, then we should have that discussion every term. So I think one thing I would suggest is we have Laura and Diane, after they finish the business of hiring this person, to bring a report forward with some options about how that policy would look, and council can decide what they want to decide, but we should look at that policy. Secondly, if we wanted to have a council member involved in the current hiring panel that's going on, interviews were today, we should probably figure out how we would make that work. So I'll leave it at that for the time being. I would suggest that, given that the interviews have already started, if a council member was selected by council to be part of the interview process, they would come in right at the end and interview with the last 4 or 5 selected candidates, whatever they've narrowed it down to, and go from there.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Tennant. So you've got 2 different discussions you want to have. Would you like to start with the current hiring practice, which started today, or the overall hiring practice for down the road?
I guess I can make a motion out of it if it makes it easier. Just to, the one's fairly simple. I would move that we have a discussion or have staff bring forward an agenda item about the hiring policy and how it happens for a future meeting. Doesn't have to be urgent. Just put it on the table so we can discuss the policy. That would be a motion. And then then forget about that for a second. This particular one, the motion would be, do we want to have a counselor involved in the current process, and how would that look? So.
Okay, so let's do the first one first then. If you'd like to put a motion on the floor, and then we can open that up for discussion to council. So which would be the hiring practice moving forward, not the current position.
Motion would be that staff bring forward a report about our current policy for hiring so that council can discuss and give direction. Simple as that.
And do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Sekaspina, second. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Tennant, sorry, yeah. Okay, any discussions on that matter? Councillor Sekaspina.
I agree with Andrew. To me, staff hires staff. I'm quite aware with that, but this is really an important job, and I would like to not have councillors say, oh, you have to hire this person. I just like them to be involved with the conversation. It would make me feel a lot better. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sekaspina. Councillor Atkinson.
Yeah, this is a really tricky area to get into, because one of the things that we're taught after being elected to council is that there's a clear line between governance and administration for our role as councillors. I think with respect to bringing forward a future policy for a role for the mayor, given that we have strong mayor powers in place, might be worthy, but I think that report wouldn't come to us very soon because it's going to be complicated. We're going to need legal opinions. We're going to need opinions with respect to strong mayor powers. And at the end of the day, I just don't think we belong there. Staff hires staff. The only member of town staff that answers to us as a council is the CAO. And we do have a role with respect to the hiring of the CAO. But every other manager position, and this is for management positions, this isn't like we're hiring a snowplow driver with a member of council there. All the other managers answer to the CAO. They don't answer to council. We do not direct them. We should never be directing them. or sticking our toes in the administration of the town. So overall, with respect to this, I'm going to vote against it because I think our role is already clear with respect to the hiring of the CAO and the roles. Although I would be interested at some point in getting an opinion on the role of the role of the mayor with respect to this now, with respect to the strong mayor powers that are in place. So I'm going to vote against this motion. And while I have the mic, I'm going to vote against the next motion too, because, and I'll speak to that when that comes forward.
Please, thanks you for that, Councillor Atkinson. We'll get to the second motion once we go through this. Any other questions or discussions? Councillor Kavanaugh?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of understand the conversation, but I'd have to agree with Councillor Atkinson where our role in these matters seems pretty clear. And when discussing either the creation of a new role or the opening of a role, I do feel like we have a discussion where we are able to say what we're looking for in that role. We're not involved in the hiring process. We're involved in the policy that the staff then takes and enforces to hire that person. And I believe we do have those conversations, especially when it comes to a new role creation, about the type of candidate that would be valuable in that, the type of skill set that's important, based on how we feel like that role fits in the organization. So it's very much about the position, not about the person. And I feel like getting ourselves in that room kind of grays that area. So I'm with Councillor Atkinson. I don't think it's our place.
Thank you, Councillor Kavanaugh. Councillor Conley?
Yeah, I too spent some time on this one, and good governance dictates that it's not our lane. We are involved with the CAO and the hiring is theirs. We set policy, we set strategic direction, we create budget, and those are the boundaries that are given to our staff to work within. Sometimes it's nice to have your fingers in all the pie and be involved in all the steps, and I can see the desire to do that sometimes, but it's really not our goal or our job as council. We're here for governance, and good governance says that's not our lane. So I'm going to vote against it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Conley. Any other discussions? Sorry. Okay, I would just like to concur with my fellow councillors. I'm very much not in favor of being involved in the hiring process. It's been designed and set up. And so I can remember, like I was there last night, one of the very first meetings we had with our Integrity Commissioner, Tony Fleming. 3 hours, and it scared it out of me. And one thing that it was just grinded into new councillors, which 3 of us were 3 short years ago, was we do not direct staff. We set policy. We have a CAO who then will direct the staff. Do not interfere. Do not tell the staff what to do, because you will then have a meeting in my office, and those aren't pleasant meetings to have. I will never forget that. It scared me, and I never, ever want to be invited to Tony Fleming's office. But even above that, the separation exists to protect professionalism in administration, prevent political interference, and maintain accountability. We have a CAO who will be held accountable by council on the decisions made going forward on the hire. So for those reasons, I am also not in favor of the motion. Deputy Mayor Tennant?
Yeah, good discussion. So I will just finish with this. I spoke to probably 20 municipalities over the last few days. We are in the minority on this. The vast majority of municipalities have an elected official as part of some form of the interview process, most of which would also be advised by Tony Fleming. And I believe that those who elect us would want us to be part of this process. Partly because we're selecting a forward-facing member of our staff to be interacting with the members of the community. We are those representatives of that community that put that person in that seat. And I think that they would expect us to be part of the process. I don't think they would expect us to delegate it. So that's why I suggest that we have the discussion. Moving this towards having a discussion doesn't necessarily make it a done deal. We can get some examples and we can assess at that time. The only thing that's urgent is the current position, which we'd have to decide on tonight. Otherwise, I think we can ask to have a policy discussion without giving our answer today. I think we don't have an agenda item in front of us. We don't have any comparables. We don't have anything at all. So I think it makes sense to have a policy discussion with those things in mind on an agenda item brought to us by staff.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Tennant. Councillor Conley?
Yeah, one thing I did learn while researching on this is there is no consistency. I too spoke to a number of CAOs and municipalities comparable to ours, some of them not, and there's no consistency. The policies are all over the map. Some of them include counselors, but they don't have a formal policy. Some do, some don't. It's hard to look at others to see what to do on this issue because there is no consistency.
Thank you, Councillor Conley. Any other questions or discussion on the matter before I call a vote? Councillor Kavanaugh?
Yeah, and maybe this is probably a question for Laura. As I'm not party to, I'm not involved in the hiring process at this corporation, but I have been involved in hiring processes at other places that I have been employed at. And my understanding is that it is an objective process that involves more than one individual, that has a metric of measurement. I guess I'm just asking that that's correct, right? I'm assuming that exists here. And so in terms of, I can understand what Deputy Mayor Tennant is saying, but when it is an objective, consistent process across all hiring positions, when it involves more than one person, when there's a measurable data point to hiring, I know you're saying we'll have this discussion, but I can't even fathom where we would fit into that, because by virtue, we don't have a position there. Unless we're an objective, unless we have a standard set of questions that we're providing you to ask somebody or to ask everybody across the organization, I don't see how it can maintain its objectivity, I guess, is my concern. I don't know if there's a question there. I'm just, we're having a discussion. Sorry, Laura. I guess I go back and forth because my fellow counselors make excellent points and I respect their experience and everything so much that I want to hear it out, but I just don't see where, and I don't know because I haven't had those same discussions with all the comparables, how that maintains objectivity, because it's inserting an extra person in something that's not consistent and uniform across the organization. So anyways, just saying that again.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kavanaugh. Before I call the vote on the suggested motion, is there any discussions or comments? Deputy Mayor Tennant.
So I think some of the final comments there circle back to having a formal discussion with all the information at hand. That's how we find this stuff out. We bring it to the floor. We have staff look for some concepts, how it would work, and we discuss it without dismissing it instantly, because there are more things to say. There's lots of things to say. And what is our role as council, as elected officials? Well, maybe we have some level of assessment of the person we think should be representing us towards the community. And I think that's an important thing. I think that's one of the reasons we get elected, is so that we can make those decisions. So, I mean, like I said, bring it forward as an item and we can discuss it with all the details.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Tennant. Any other further questions or discussion on the first matter of motion? I see none, so I'll call the vote. All in favor of having a report coming forward later date discussing future hiring practices? Opposed? And that motion has been defeated. So we will move on to the second motion. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Tennant.
I'll remove the second motion because we're not going to do the first one. We're not going to do the second one. So we'll just take it off the table.
Okay. Do we just take it off the table, Stacy? Yeah, okay. Sorry. Yep, sorry, Councillor Atkinson.
So we've just voted down a motion asking staff to bring us a report to have a future discussion with respect to councillor involvement with the hiring process in town. So we've had a motion and we've voted for it. My understanding of the procedural bylaw is we've discussed something, we've defeated it. It doesn't come back this council term unless we suspend the rules of procedure. Is that correct?
There would have to be new information.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Atkinson. And we're moving on. We are moving on to committee and board and external organizational updates. The suggested motion is that the following minutes be received. Library Board for November 19th, 2025, and the Environmental Advisory Committee for February 2nd, 2026. If I could have a mover and seconder on those, please. Councillor Atkinson, Councillor Kavanaugh, any questions? See none, all in favor? Opposed? See none, and that motion has been approved. Thank you. Information listings. We have 5 of them this evening. For anyone that's interested, you can go on and visit our website at carletonplace.ca to see exactly what all those information listings are. I will read the suggested motion that the information listings dated February 17th, 2026 be received. Then get a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Kavanaugh. And Deputy Mayor Tennant. Any discussions? See none. All in favor? Opposed, see none, and that motion is carried. Thank you very much. And I'm sure I'm not missing anything. No, we are moving into closed session at this time for 2 matters, one a litigation matter and the other a community planning matter. The suggested motion is that the committee move into closed session at 6:57 p.m. to discuss matters subject to the Municipal Act, Section 239-2. 1, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, item 2. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, item 1. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privileges, item 1. And a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by, on, or on behalf of the municipality or local board, item 2. And that the following persons be permitted to participate in the meeting. Diane Smithson, CAO for both items, Stacy Blair, clerk for both items, and Tam Rickson, solicitor for item 1. I'm going to move and seconder.
Mr. Chair, could we also have Joanne Henderson for item 1 be added to the motion?
Certainly. Joanne Henderson added to item 1 for the motion. Moved by Councillor Comley, second by Councillor Kavanaugh. All in favor? And we will be moving into closed session. Okay, welcome back, and we will have a rise and report by our CAO, Diane Smithson.
So staff direction was provided in closed session for both items.
Thank you, Diane. And we are at adjournment. The suggested motion is that the meeting be adjourned at 8:41 p.m. Moved by Councillor Comley, second by Councillor Kavanaugh. All in favor? And that motion is passed. Thank you. Good evening.